The open public meeting law requires that anyone recording this meeting must identify themselves and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? Identify yourself. I hear none. Okay. So the first item is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of July 11th, 2019 meeting. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to extend the lease with Castlebridge LLC for use of 500 square feet of first floor space at 12 Channel Street within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. Castlebridge is in Suite 103 at 12 Channel Street. It's about 500 square feet. The business is a local woman-owned and operated business. They make custom kitchen cabinets, gates, doors, other housing materials. They came to us in 2013 for temporary space. They were there for 3 months, and they're still there. But they are in a 2-year recurring license, so to speak. They have direct loading dock access, but they don't have any heat or air conditioning in the suite. The current lease expires on August 31st, and they pay $20.60, which is comparable to other similar spaces that do not have heat or AC. We have offered them a new 2-year term for $21.25 per square foot. It's a 3.18% increase from their current rate. And the first year, they will pay to us $10,625 with a 3% escalation for next year.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, thank you. Item number 3, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with Deacon Transportation, doing business as Old Town Trolley Tours of Boston for the 2019 Trolley Stop Program to operate from the Black Falcon Cruise Terminal within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park for the 2019 cruise ship season. Maureen.
The Raymond L. Flynn Marine, Cruise Port has become increasingly popular international destination, and they will welcome approximately 400,000 passengers this year in 2019. Since 2009, we have entered into agreements with sightseeing tour companies, and they operate a trolley stop right near the cruise port, directly up the street, not too far, so that the passengers do not have to walk into the influx of industrial business traffic and trucks. We have a long-term relationship with Old Town Trolley. The fee that they'll pay this year is $35,700 for the whole season. It will be retroactive to April, and they've been assisting the passengers since then, although we're just licensing them. We are insured, and they have been making payments to us. The use of the trolley stop is both good for Old Town Trolley to make some revenue off the passengers, and it assists us with the passengers not traversing the industrial park because of all the trucking and the immense amount of traffic on a Friday during cruise ship season.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Item number 4, request authorization to execute a memorandum of agreement with the City of Boston Property Management Department for municipal protective services at 43 Hawkins Street and the Raymond L. Flynn Park. John.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Secretary, members of the board. As in many previous iterations, EDIC has always executed a memorandum of agreement with the municipal protection services to provide us coverage and protection on our property. We are asking to sign another memorandum of agreement for the upcoming years.
Okay, thank you, John. Are there any questions from the board?
I had one question, John. Does that force receive any cultural sensitivity training, or is that part of their training? Do you know?
You know, I would have to. I do not know the answer to that. I would have to ask the city services which provide the municipal protective services, but I could find that out for you and get back to you. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We could try and execute that into the agreement, if even more so, if you'd
Great.
like.
Thank you.
Great, I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions or motions in order,
So moved.
Second.
then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Item number 5, request authorization to issue a request for proposals for the engineering design services for mobility improvements and streetscape design on Northern Avenue and Tide Street within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Paul?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Secretary Polimus. This is a request authorization to advertise the design project, mobility improvements in streetscape design on Northern Avenue and Tide Street in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. BPDA requests design services through the RFP advertisement that seeks a designer to perform the following for the Northern Avenue and Tide Street areas. Conduct a complete topographical survey which serves as the baseline for all of our construction improvements drawing that we'll do. Development of preliminary design drawings for BPDA approval, and then ultimately development of final drawings and detailed cost estimates suitable for public bidding, along with bidding assistance and resident engineering services. The resident engineering services is for an individual to oversee the work on a daily basis to assure all the work's being done in accordance with our contract drawings and the BPDA requirements as well. Scope of work for the designer shall be bring all sidewalks up to ADA standards, construct a 7-foot wide sidewalk and a 4-foot separated bike lane on each side of Northern Avenue. They'll also reset the curbing and upgrade and replace regulatory signage. They'll add streetscape improvements, including landscaping and 32 City of Boston energy-efficient streetlights. The RFPs will be solicited through the BPDA's design and selection process, Chapter 30. It's expected to advertise the solicitation in September. Funding for the design contract is included in the City of Boston fiscal year 2020 capital budget. If there's any questions related to that, I'd be glad to answer those at this time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board?
This covers Northern Ave and Tide
Tide
Street.
Street, yep.
What about the rest of the Marine Park?
For the work that's detailed, this was pre-assigned as a capital budget request through the city. And what we do is we know the condition and the age of the streets that we've done in the past, and this one's in line for their time for improvement. And it follows in with our schedule of doing all of the streets. Actually, a lot of the streets have all been rehabilitated now. This one here incorporates the work that relates to bicycles and having the ability to use those safely on the street. Fortunately for us, Northern Avenue was built extra wide, so we're not really shrinking down the travel lanes for the each way, so that we are able to fit a bike lane both on the north and the south side of the street, so we should be good.
Okay, if there's no further questions or motions in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Item number 6, request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for the snow plowing and shoveling removal and salting and sanding services within the Raymond L. Flynn Park. John?
Thank you, Chairman, Secretary, members of the board. Pretty straightforward. We're asking for a execution of a 1-year contract with 2 1-year options for snow removal services in the EDIC park.
Okay, thank you, John. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, John. Item number 7, personnel. Shaban?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. We have some personnel items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda this afternoon. We have 2 appointments with further details listed for your review in the board memo. First is Jack Halverson, Transportation Planning Assistant, and the second is Piao Shin Jin as a 3D data analyst. We have 1 employment service contractor with details listed in the board memo for your review and consideration, and that's Paul Cote. He would be working in MIS. Number 4, we have 4 travel items for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. Claire Shepard, Office of Workforce Development. 2, Christian Rivera, Office of Workforce Development. Azan Reed, Office of Workforce Development. And Joseph Blankenship in the Planning Department. And finally, we have 2 departures with details listed in the board memo. That's Lillian Mensa, Planner 1, and Mark Goncalves, Property Maintenance Technician. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the board? So motions in order to accept the personnel report?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. So I need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Okay, I gotta read this statement again. The open public meeting law requires that anyone recording this meeting must identify themselves, and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. Is there anyone in the audience that's also recording this? Would you please identify yourself? Okay, the first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of minutes of July 11, 2019 meeting. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on September 12, 2019 at 5:30 PM or at a date and time to be determined by the director to approve the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 118, Rio Grande Dudley Square Development at 2343 through 2345 Washington Street and 11 through 29 Roxbury Street in Roxbury. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 3, the Board of Appeal. Jeff, are there any changes or anything we need to know?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polhamus. 70 petitions have been prepared for transmittal to the ZBA for their 2 remaining hearings in August and on September 10th. There have been no changes.
Are there any questions from the board? So motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Item number 4, request authorization to extend the lease with the Massachusetts Port Authority for an additional 60 days for the use of approximately 147,505 square feet of parcel P-8A2 located on the southwesterly side of Terminal Street in the Charlestown Urban Renewal Area. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 1979, BPDA entered into a 40-year lease with the Massachusetts Port Authority for the use of a 3-acre parcel in Charlestown along Little Mystic. Massport has used the parcel for several uses over the years, but most recently has been used as part of the massive Boston Autoport complex located just below the Tobin Bridge. Massport and BPDA have been negotiating the terms and conditions of a lease extension. Part of the negotiations include a comprehensive community engagement. The lease was scheduled to expire in May of 2019. The board graciously authorized an extension through August of 2019. We're requesting an additional 60-day extension to allow both parties to analyze the community input in the context of the lease, negotiate any additional community benefits that may be required at Massport, and negotiate a fair market lease rate, taking into account all of the external considerations above and beyond pure market value. I can assure you that both Massport and BPDA are fully engaged in this important transaction, and both sides want to agree on a business deal that both benefits the community and represents a fair and equitable financial model. And I feel very confident that a 60-day extension will go a long way to us finalizing these negotiations.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Item number 5, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with the Navy Yard Garden Association, Inc. for an interactive public art exhibit located in the Charlestown Navy Yard, and to enter into a license agreement with Leopold Gallery, LLC, for the installation of the Whitaker Wind Sculpture Art Exhibit. John?
Good evening, Chairman, Secretary, members of the board. We've had a great relationship with the Navy Yard Garden Association in terms of activating the land of the Navy Yard. Last year, they brought us the Big Dog sculptures, and if you guys recall that. So next year's art installation would be the wind sculptures that they'd like to put in. So staff is requesting that we license the land to the Navy Yard and license Whitaker to install the art.
Great, okay. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, John. Item number 6. Request authorization to amend the license agreement with the Courageous Sailing Center of Boston, Inc., allowing continued use of a portion of land located at Pier 4 in the Charlestown Navy Yard for a youth sailing program for an additional year. Richard?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, yes, once again, coming in to ask for another year extension on the license for the Courageous Sailing Center on Pier 4 in the Charlestown Navy Yard.
Okay, are there any questions on the board? I happen to have a question. It's, how come, it seems we just do this every year. Is there any benefit to going to a longer-term lease with this group? I mean, it's a nonprofit, they provide a good service. I know a lot of kids in Boston sail there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Devin Quirk, Director of Real Estate. Great question. That is actually a conversation we've had with Courageous Sailing at least once this summer. To enter into a long-term, they desire a long-term lease arrangement. They would, a long-term lease would allow them to undertake a capital capital campaign to get funding to enhance the pier, build a community center as part of their plan. I think the position of the BPDA is that we should do an RFP to allow competitive open process for uses on that site. We are in discussions with them about how that might unfold. We've also talked about having a community meeting this fall to take community sentiment on that type of long-term lease. So I think we share your concern, and I think we find the Courageous Sailing to be a great tenant, and we're looking forward to looking at a more long-term arrangement.
Would you let me know how that meeting goes in the fall, and maybe let us, just keep us in the loop so
Absolutely.
we can...
We'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chairman.
very much. Item number 7. Request authorization to enter into a 3-year license agreement with I'm not gonna be able to say this name. You can say it.
It's Gunkwok.
Ganghua Dance, Chinatown Main Street, and the Chinatown Historical Society for office space in the basement of the China Trade Center located at 2 Boylston Street. Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board, Madam Secretary. 2 Boylston Street, the China Trade Building, was constructed in 1887, and it serves as a symbol of the City of Boston's commitment to revitalize Boston's Midtown Chinatown area. In 2014, a large portion of the building became vacant when the Commonwealth of Massachusetts vacated 5 entire floors. Commencing in 2015, with the assistance of the prominent real estate firm CBRE, BPDA undertook an aggressive marketing, leasing campaign to re-tenant the building. As of 2017, over 90% of the building has been leased to new tenants at market rate. Since the 1990s, several not-for-profit agencies located within the China Trade Center have provided the community with cultural and historical resources and have facilitated connectivity to the greater Chinatown businesses. Gunkwok is the only all-women female lion and dragon dance troupe in the United States. They were established in February of 1998 to give Asian women an opportunity to express their creativity, power, and strength through performing the lion and dragon dances. The Chinatown Main Streets program supports the neighborhood community by backing local businesses, establishing new opportunities, and maintaining old traditions. The Chinese Historical Society of New England is a nonprofit entity incorporated in Massachusetts in 1992. It is the first educational organization dedicated solely to the documentation, preserving, and promoting of the history and legacy of Chinese immigration in New England. These organizations have an established presence in the China Trade Center and are integral to the cultural life in Chinatown. As nonprofits, however, they operate on a limited budget. Each of the Gunkwok, Chinatown Main Streets, and Historical Society will be responsible for obtaining any and all permits, licenses, which may be required in order for their use of the premises. Further, each licensee shall maintain adequate coverage for personal injury and property damage, plus excess liability covered with the landlord. Inasmuch as over 90% of the building is generating market rents to the BPDA, and in recognition of the service provided to the neighborhood by these small not-for-profit entities, who collectively occupy less than 3% of the building, no fee is proposed. It is our recommendation that the BPDA enter into a new 3-year lease with each of these agencies. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes your presentation? Okay. Are there any questions from the board? No, it sounds like a wonderful program. If there's no questions, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the City of Boston Property Management Department for use of the Municipal Protective Services at the China Trade Center located at 2 Boylston Street. John.
Mr. Chairman, Secretary, members of the board, in the same vein as the EDIC Marine Park, we are asking that the Property Management Department and its use of the Municipal Protective Services provide their services to the China Trade Building as well, and staff requests executing a memorandum of agreement.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
John. Item number 9, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with the Boston Public School Department for the temporary use of 3 vacant lots owned by the BRA and identified as a portion of 1, 2, and 4 Palmer Street, 2180 through 2190 Washington Street, and 2148 Washington Street in the Dudley Square area of the City of Boston for personal vehicle parking. Lauren.
The Boston Public Schools currently operates a parking lot for employees working at the bowling building. That lot is subject to some usage for a lay-down construction project. In the interim, they have requested that they be allowed our use of space in order to park the cars. This is a 6-month lease with a proposed extension if the construction carries over.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
There's quite a bit of construction planned for that area over the next few years. So what happens after the 6 months?
Well, their lot shouldn't be involved in anything. They have a deal with a construction company for 6 months to lay down in the lot B2 where they normally park. So after that part of the construction's over, there's no laydown agreement for there, so they should be returning back to their own space.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second?
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Lauren. Item number 10. Request authorization to enter a license agreement with the Now and There, Inc. for the temporary use of 555 Columbia Road in the Upham's Corner for an art exhibit. Lauren.
Upham's Corner is undergoing changes to its commercial corridor and cultural facilities, creating an opportunity to strengthen the area as a cultural hub. The City of Boston is committed to investing cultural facilities redevelopment as part of a broader strategy for stimulating creative community and economic development and revitalization that will help Upham's Corner thrive. The concept of an art and innovation district emerged as a way to combine the power of the Strand Theater as an art asset with the new Upham's Corner Branch Library and emerging small-scale entrepreneurship in the area, supported by the Fairmont Innovation Lab, the Transformative Culture Project, and other cultural and community-based organizations. In 2017, the BPDA purchased the vacant former Bank of America building located at 555 Columbia Road as a mechanism to control strategic building in a key location to further the goals of the Upham's Corner Arts and Innovation District concept. In May 2018, Mayor Walsh announced the release of a request for ideas for the short-term activation of this property. As an outgrowth of the RFI process, Now and There Incorporated, a 501c3 dedicated to creating impactful public art projects in Greater Boston, has created, with the input of community members and the renowned public artist Nick Cave, their most ambitious project to date, Augment. Neighborhood artist-created collages have been used to create a kaleidoscopic building wrap that will cover 3 sides of the building located at 555 Columbia Road. Upon completion of environmental abatement, and here I'd like to stress that the artists and the agency are all aware of the abatement issues in the building, which include asbestos. It's a minimal concern, but we have a group working with them and us to make sure that before they enter the building, that everything is clear. And so the second part of Augment involves approximately 300 lawn ornaments creatively decomposed and restitched together in clever ways, and that will be housed inside the building with parts sticking out through the windows to make the building look like a living, breathing sculpture. In order to facilitate this exciting project, the BPDA, we suggest enter into a license with Now and There, authorizing the use of 555 Columbia Road and the building inside with approval.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
This project opened at the Cyclorama last week.
It did.
To much acclaim, and there was a very nice supportive piece in the Globe this week. Are we sure that the insurance that will be provided will cover all of the consequences of this inflatable being installed at this location?
So I actually had the opportunity to go by last Thursday and was surprised at the sort of lightness of this entire project. But before it gets installed, we have our engineers also taking a close look at how things will be installed along with the environmental concerns. So we have made sure that their insurance has matched up with everything that has been accepted so far.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 11. Request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for a commercial facility manager to operate and manage the China Trade Center located at 2 Boylston Street in Boston for a 3-year term with 2 one-year options. Laura.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Laura Melly, and I'm the Deputy Director of Real Estate Administration. You've heard from my colleagues Lauren and John about the China Trade Center. I think Lauren in particular really highlighted the fact that the BPDA has been investing in this property because of its immense historical and cultural significance. We've been able to make it a really modern, attractive office space, and we've also been able to offer space to nonprofits who are providing a lot of great community programming. And of course, there's a branch of the Boston Public Library in the China Trade Center as well. Given the China Trade Center's role in providing economic opportunities for our community and revenue for the agency, it's critical to have specialized, dedicated oversight of the building. This building has been professionally managed for the past 3 years, and so we're seeking authorization to issue a request for proposal to select the best partner for the next 3 to 5 years. The RFP process will enable us to select the most qualified and innovative firm who will be able to provide excellent customer service to our tenants and also effectively control costs in the building. The property manager will coordinate between tenants, BPDA staff, and third-party service providers. And I should also mention that they'll also be helping coordinate maintenance of the Liberty Tree Plaza right outside the China Trade Center. Therefore, I request your authorization for the Secretary to advertise and issue a request for proposals to hire a commercial facility manager for the China Trade Center located at 2 Boylston. The awarded contract will have a term of 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew that may be exercised at the sole discretion of the BPDA. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. This seems like do you have a marketing strategy for marketing this RFP to women and minority-owned businesses?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. I think for all of our RFPs and bids that are coming out, we're working hard to make sure that we have a really robust outreach strategy. So I think this is a specialized service in terms of professional facility managers in this type of market and this type of building, but we're absolutely going to work to do that, and we can definitely share back a more detailed outreach strategy once we get a little closer to the release date.
Great, thank you.
If there's no further questions, and a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 12. Request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for snow plowing and shoveling, removal and salting and sanding services at the BRA-owned properties citywide. John?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Secretary, members of the board. Staff requests permission to advertise and issue an invitation for bid for snow clearance and salting sanding services on BRA-owned properties.
Okay. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Thank you.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 13, request authorization to execute a contract with Dandis Contracting, Inc. for the atrium painting and repairs at the China Trade Building located at 2 Boylston Street in an amount not to exceed $530,000, and to execute any change orders that may be required to complete the work as deemed necessary by the director in an aggregate amount not to exceed 10% of the total contract. Paul?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In January of this year, the BPDA hired Studio NA Architects, a WBE consultant that I've worked with very, very successfully in the past, to inspect and prepare contract bid documents for painting the entire atrium space of the China Trade Building from the basement to the 7th story. This includes erecting scaffold to get to all areas of the interior space in order to repair drywall sections, patching holes, sanding, then priming and painting in colors that have been approved by the BPDA Urban Design. If you see that photo on the screen there, it gives you an idea. That photograph was taken from the first floor. Down below, there's a basement where the library is, and then above that first floor, it goes up to seven stories up to the underside of the roof. So that job will entail a lot of scaffolding. We're trying to develop it such that we're minimizing the impact to our tenants, making them aware of what we're doing, but ideally it's an improvement to the building that I think they'll be very pleased about. In my lifetime, I don't think there was any full painting of that building to the scope that we're considering here today. All walls, ceilings, cast iron columns, and beams will receive fresh coats of paint. Other work included as part of the project is repairs to the existing skylights and structural roof framing inspections. That's if you're in the atrium and you look all the way up, there's 12 skylights in there, closely spaced together. We are getting some water infiltration in there, but we're going to take a look at what it was and check the flashing and solve that problem. Cleaning all the steel catwalk areas from dust and debris. The catwalk areas are on the window side of that. You can't really see it that well, but all above the 7 stories is a catwalk there that needs to be cleaned and repaired. There's also window repair, caulking, and painting, and there's heating system repairs and general maintenance that we're going to do while the scaffold's up, because it's capitalized on the ability of the scaffold of the painter to utilize some of the things that we need to do that has nothing to do with painting. The board authorization for bidding the project was received on May 16th, 2019, and the project was competitively bid in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 149. Bids were received on July 2nd, 2019, open and read aloud, and the lowest eligible and responsible bidder for the China Trade Center project was Dandis Contracting for an amount of $530,000. All required bid documents, including the DCAM certification, which is required under Chapter 149, was submitted by the contractor. The design consultant has also recommended Dandis Contracting as the lowest eligible and qualified bidder. Total contract award is $530,000, and this amount was budgeted for the fiscal year 2020 capital improvement budget. So if there's any questions related to that, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you all very much.
Item number 14, request authorization to disperse $650,000 from the Chinatown Affordable Housing Trust to Chinatown Community Land Trust, Inc. as a result of a request for proposal for affordable income restricted housing in Chinatown. Tim?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Burke, Secretary Polimus, and members of the board. In December of 2002, the BRA, as a representative for the City of Boston, entered into a memorandum of understanding between the Chinese Progressive Association, Simon So, and the 1025 Hancock Street Incorporated, which is the developer of the Liberty Place project, as part of a settlement between the CPA, Simon So, and the City Boston Board of Appeal. As a result of the MOU, the BPDA is committed to providing $650,000 in funds for affordable housing in Chinatown. Recognizing today's strong need for affordable housing in the area and at the request of the Chinese Progressive Association, it was felt the request for proposals at this time should be released, which was released on June 4th with a deadline of July 3rd. 14 individuals and organizations downloaded the RFP, but the BPDA received one proposal from the Chinatown Community Land Trust, or CCLT. CCLT is actively working to purchase Chinatown row houses in order to maintain the built fabric of the neighborhood and to secure additional permanent affordability in the neighborhood. CCLT is seeking the funding in order to facilitate the purchase of 29 Oak Street and 95 Hudson Street, which together contain 7 units. They would purchase the properties, do needed renovations, and sell the units as income-restricted condominiums with the ground lease from the land trust. Additional funding will be required, and the City of Boston Department of Neighborhood Development staff are identifying sources for this additional funding. The review committee, made up of BPDA and Department of Neighborhood Development staff, determined that the proposal was advantageous and recommends this vote for the disbursement of these funds. In addition, the Chinese Progressive Association, who is a party to the agreement, also supported this recommendation. If you have any questions, Lydia Lowe from the Land Trust is here today with us as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Tim. Congratulations. Item number 15. Request authorization to extend the tentative designation of Madison Tropical LLC as the redeveloper of a portion of Parcel 10, known as Parcel B in the Southwest Corridor Development Plan, and to extend the license agreement for the continued use of Parcel 10B for parking. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Secretary Polhemus. We are here before you today for a consideration of the extension on the tentative designation for Madison Tropical, particularly as relates to the ongoing work that they will be doing for the third phase of Parcel 10. You may recall from our last presentation that the consideration of the development team has been to change the project program for Phase 3, which is at 2085 Washington Street, from predominantly commercial to residential. Since the last time we gathered here, we have had the opportunity internally with staff and also working with the development team to provide an update to the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee and the Project Review Committee to share the development team's early considerations relative to that proposed change. That conversation and update were met with a significant amount of approval and understanding that changes in the market for commercial in Dudley are such that this new approach for a program for the project would be appropriate. Also taking into consideration that Madison Tropical, particularly Madison Development Corporation, their primary activity as a developer is related to housing. They are looking to propose, instead of the 54,000 square feet of commercial, to move to the creation of rental and affordable home ownership, excuse me. And part of the work that they'll be undertaking in the next several weeks is to finish the work of finalizing the financial considerations on that and preparing what is required, which is a notice of project change for the original approvals. That will require, in addition, more stakeholder and community process, as well as design review, et cetera. The expectation of staff who have been working on this is that they will come to us with that notice of project change by the end of September for the process to be undertaken. I'll stop my remarks there, and I'll acknowledge the presence of Russ Tanner from Madison Park CDC, who's the Director of Real Estate, who can entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Dana. Item number 16. Request authorization to issue certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6, Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the construction of 34 residential condominium units, including 4 IDP unit, 29 off-street parking spaces, bicycle storage at 3 Aspenwall Road, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief to take all related actions. John?
Thank you, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus. The proponent, Shanty Acquisition LLC, proposed to construct a 4-story residential building located between Washington Street and Whitfield Street in the Carbon Square section of Dorchester. The project site consists of a single parcel, approximately 17,786 square feet of land that contains the former Nelson Manor nursing home, which is now a dilapidated structure. The proposed project provides an IDP commitment of 4 condominium units. In addition, there is $40,000 committed in community benefits towards public realm improvements to Carbon Square Park, located on the corner of Washington Street and Talbot Avenue, as well as funding for transit improvements along the Washington Street corridor. The proponent filed an Article 80 application on June 3rd. A public meeting was held on July 8th. The proposed project received an overwhelming amount of support from the community. They liked the idea that this was a condominium proposal, and they liked the fact that there was this investment being made into their neighborhood. At this time, I would like to introduce architect Ruthie Coleman to further the presentation. Ruthie?
Okay, thank you, John.
Thanks, John. So to give you a quick overview of the project, the site is located, you can see on this map here, just north of Codman Square in Dorchester, right off of the Washington Street corridor. And it is at the edge of a 2- and 3-family residential zone, as well as a neighborhood shopping district. And the overall goal of this project from Shanty Acquisition's perspective is to provide home ownership opportunities that would complement the existing 2- and 3-family units that surround the site. So some photos of the site in its existing condition. This is from Washington Street looking down Aspinwall. You can see the site and the existing building. That's the Nelson Manor Nursing Home on the right. And then here, as we move in front of the site, you can see better the building. This building has been abandoned for the past 25 years at this point. Our design concept in approaching this location was creating a tie at a neighborhood scale between these two districts and merging between the size of the neighborhood residential and connecting into the neighborhood shopping. You can see here, this is kind of the volume of the proposal. It composed of a number of residential scale buildings that come together to form one unified structure, creating a range of studio, 1-bed, and 2-bed home ownership units. This is our overall site plan, which you can see shows level 1. The vehicular access we've held towards the Washington Street side of the site, which connects down into the basement where there's a full tray of parking. And then the units start on level 1 and continue through level 4, with the lobby being accessed off the street and amenity courtyard being built onto the west side of the site. This is a rendering from Aspinwall looking towards Washington Street. You can see how we're using materiality to kind of create a distinction between these volumes that come together to form the building, with the access to the garage on the far side and the lobby entrance in between the two buildings closest to us. This is a view of the courtyard and the side of the building. And then here are a couple of elevations showing again that front Aspinwall elevation and the side elevation that has the courtyard. And this takes us to the conclusion of our presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, I mean, it's pretty impressive. Hearing no questions and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you, congratulations.
It's a nice piece of design.
That's great.
Item number 17,
Good job.
request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B, 5.3D, large project review of the zoning code for the Tri-Mount Place at 267 O'Colony Ave, consisting of the construction of 55 residential rental units, including 9 IDP units, 7,914 square feet of commercial space, 65 garage parking spaces, and bicycle storage, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief, and to take all related actions. John?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, I'm delighted to bring this proposal before you tonight. The proponent, 267 Oconee Avenue LLC, they propose to construct a 6-story mixed-use building at the corner of Old Colony Avenue and Dorchester Street. The project site consists of a single parcel, approximately 21,415 square feet of land. The proposed project is within the planned South Boston Dorchester Avenue Planning Initiative. So the density bonus guidelines increased the IDP commitment from 7 units to 9 and $105,000 contribution to the IDP fund. In addition, there is a $300,000 community benefit contribution towards public realm improvements to Dorchester Street and the implementation of the climate resiliency plan for Moakley Park. Now, the proponent filed the project notification form on March 20th. A series of IAG and public meetings were held throughout the spring and early summer. The proponent was very responsive to the concerns of the abutters by adjusting the design at the rear of the building by pulling it back. So it was a very good process. So I would like to thank the IAG members for their time and assistance during this process, as well as my colleagues Matt Martin, Michael Canizzo, Mary Canassis, and Tim Davis. And at this time, I would like to introduce architect Doug Stefanov. Doug?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Sorry, there we go. Chairman, members of the board, thank you all for hearing me. First of all, my name is Doug Stefanov, Stefanov Architects. I'm pleased to bring you this proposal to renovate the corner of Dorchester Street and Old Colony. We propose to demolish the existing single-story commercial building you see there in the background and erect a 6-story, 55-unit mixed-use building with commercial space and parking. Highlights of the project. I really can't read that. Currently, it's an open-air lot with a single-story, residential, commercial mixed with complete streets compliance. Andrew Square Civic Association asked us to bring greenery and trees on the sidewalk. We're actually removing several of the curb cuts that are there now, reducing it down to about 1 and planting about 9 trees with sidewalk widths from 12 to 10 feet along both Old Colony and Dorchester Street. That's the lot from the bird's eye view. As you see, kind of a triangular shaped lot. This is looking at it from Old Colony. Further down, that's Moakley Park to your left. Here's a floor plan. So we have currently 3 potential commercial spaces, one of which could be merged into one, not dedicated for anything particular. Andrews Square Civic did ask for maybe some restaurant or food service, and then maybe something for a local business, maybe the small unit to the front. We have our main entrance, as you see in purple, in the middle on Old Colony, and we've worked closely with the neighbors to have a single means of access and exit to the parking area. We have enough space in the parking area for a loading zone inside, so removing that from the street. We'll work with the neighborhood for maybe a Uber drop-off spot dedicated or loading, depending on what type of retail space, retail use comes into the building. The rest of the floors are a combination of single and 2-bedroom units. I think a couple 3 bedrooms up in mixed. And we're proposing kind of a generalized landscaped roof, not so much a private roof deck, but a place where people could walk Obviously, pet relief area, maybe some planting areas or like allotments, just for fresh air. And of course, there'd be probably a very good view towards Moakley and the ocean, be to your left. Here's a rendering on Old Colony. We took the building's kind of like a U-shaped, has a big courtyard in the back. And working closely with BPDA, both Matt Martin and Michael Canizzo, we've opened up this front entryway to be glazed so you can see straight through to the courtyard beyond. The back of the building faces south, so as the sun comes around, that'll come streaming through the building and towards the front, which I think will be quite nice. We got a little bit of grade shift going on, so I've got 6 stories to the left and 5 to the right with a double height commercial space. Here's a view pretty much dead on from Old Colony to my left and Dorchester to my right. We're using 2 main materials. The scalar buildings, or the scaled down buildings, are brick, and then we jump to a terracotta tile, which is like a masonry product for the main surfacing of the building. And here's our view on Dorchester Street. As you can see to the right, we have a 3-story brick element, which is in scale with our neighbors, and then we jump up to our 5-story structure. That's a straight elevation, entrance in the middle, commercial in the first, activating the street, and residential above. So I thank you all very much.
Great, thank you. It's pretty remarkable. I'm very familiar with that area, and it's it's a beautiful building.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Are there any questions from the board? No architect questions?
No. It's a really nice design.
I walked by there so many times as a kid, I just can't believe the difference. You know?
It'll be quite something.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no questions, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
And congratulations. Okay, item number 18. Request authorization to issue preliminary adequacy determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B-5.4C4, large project review of the zoning code, and waiving the final project impact project. Subject to BRA design review for the renovations and construction of 5400 Patron Multi-Purpose Performing Arts Center, 32,000 square feet of new vertical expansion for the garage building for amenities at Fenway Park, and garage renovations and support areas for both the Fenway Theater and Fenway Park, and to take all related actions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just give the team a moment to set up the model here for the board.
Put it over here if you want. We'll move this stuff. This is coming with me.
There we go.
Perfect. All right, good evening. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I am filling in for my colleague, Tim Serwinski, this evening, first on the proposed Fenway Theater and in related Fenway Park renovations in front of you presently, and later on the 1241 Boylston Street project. Tim's a Yankees fan, so we decided it wouldn't be appropriate for him to take this project to the board. But no, in all seriousness, Tim and his wife are spending some time with the newborn son. Happy to report everyone's doing well. On February 22nd, 2019, 175 Ipswich Street, LLC, filed an expanded project notification form with the Boston Planning and Development Agency, proposing approximately 146,000 square feet of new and renovated gross floor area, situated on almost 1.5 acres at 12 to 28 Lansdowne Street, which is currently occupied by open-air service areas, parking for Fenway Park, and a building facilitating dining and function services. The proposed project includes several key components, including first, the construction of a new state-of-the-art multi-purpose performing arts center totaling approximately 91,500 square feet on 4 levels with a capacity of approximately 5,400 patrons. Secondly, approximately 32,000 square feet of new fan amenity areas servicing Fenway Park to be built as a 2-story expansion to the existing Fenway Garage. And lastly, the renovation of approximately 22,500 square feet of existing 2-story interior space in Fenway Garage to provide enhanced service and support areas serving both Fenway Park and the Fenway Theater. There are a number of economic benefits, public realm benefits, community benefits, and transportation mitigation measures included in the proposed project, the full details of which are available in the board memo, but just to highlight a few that the BPDA and the city feels are great benefits for the neighborhoods and the city. The proponent has committed to hosting an annual job fair to promote hiring of local residents in the Fenway, Kenmore, and Audubon communities, and subject to applicable legal requirements, the proponent is committed to hiring qualified Boston residents for both full and part-time positions in the theater. Approximately $1.3 million in public realm and infrastructure improvements will be undertaken by the proponent, including the proposed project, including the narrowing of the intersection at Lansdowne and Ipswich Streets to provide wider sidewalks and safe pedestrian crossings, improvements to 2 existing bus stops, and the provision of 2 new bus shelters along Ipswich Street to service the MBTA number 55 bus route. The proponent shall make a contribution to the Boston Parks and Recreation Commission totaling $200,000 over 10 years for maintenance and improvements to parks in the Fenway community, including the Back Bay Fens. The proponent will also make a contribution of $500,000 over 5 years to the neighboring Boston Arts Academy, and a number of unique partnerships between the BAA, its students and teachers, and the Fenway Theater for employment and internship opportunities, programming, and use of space will also be created. The proponent will provide discounted tickets to events at the Fenway Theater for residents of the Fenway, Kenmore, and Audubon communities. The proponent is committed to partnering with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and Mayor's Office of Economic Development to develop a career pathway program that capitalizes on the synergies that will manifest themselves between the Fenway Theater and other arts and cultural organizations in the city. And finally, the proponent will fund and execute studies examining opportunities for improved connectivity and access along Ipswich Street and enhanced service of the MBTA number 55 bus route. BPDA staff is pleased to recommend approval to the board this evening of the Fenway Theater project and associated improvements, which have also been supported by local district councilor Josh Zachem, city councilor Tim McCarthy, city councilor Ed Flynn, city councilor Frank Baker, and city councilor at large Michael Flaherty. We thank the members of the Impact Advisory Group for their time and advisement through this review process. Ruth Bonsignor will further inform the board on the proposed project. BPDA staff and the proponent are happy to answer any questions the board may have at the conclusion of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you very much, members of the board. It's my pleasure on behalf of our team to present a very brief overview of the project, and my charge is to be short, and we'll get right into the project description. This is just a rendering of the project. Most of you are familiar with the location. It's, just to orient you, it's on the south side of Lansdowne Street at the eastern edge of the Fenway Ballpark. And adjacent to Ipswich Street. The project, this is an aerial of the project location, and it's really 2 major physical components are on the site currently. One is the Fenway Garage, which is shown in white, and the other is the triangle lot, which is the triangular parcel on the east side of the lot. The hatched area in the middle of the Fenway Garage is the area of the Fenway Garage that's going to be demolished to make room for the theater. The white area that's shown is the area that's going to be renovated for functions that support both Fenway Park and the theater itself. And above the white area is going to be improvements to Fenway Park for the bleachers. So this, again, contextually, you're now a little bit oriented in a different direction. You've got Lansdowne Street on your right. You've got Ipswich Street straight forward, and the site shown there with the triangle lot in the forefront. And that's what it's going to look like from a build standpoint. The area in the foreground is the theater, Fenway Theater proper. Major entrance is at the Ipswich-Lansdowne intersection, and in the background is the green area, is the extension of the Fenway Garage for improvements of concession, restrooms, accessibility, and function improvements for the bleacher space. Just to take you through, we've had very good meetings with the BCDC as well as Landmarks Commission and made some significant improvements to the site design. This is a elevation of Lansdowne Street. Lansdowne Street to the right is the existing Fenway Garage facade. To the left is the new theater. We've made several changes to retain the bulk of the historic streetscape, the historic building, the Fenway Garage building along Lansdowne Street, and to integrate the theater into that existing building, and made adjustments to materials and treatments to integrate the ballpark architecture with the Fenway. The top shows at night, bottom shows during the day along Lansdowne Street. Right now, a lot of the Lansdowne Street is not activated at the street, and a lot of these windows into the theater along the Fenway Garage front will be activated in the future. This is on the other side of the park, Ipswich Street. Again, the theater in this drawing is to the right, and the Fenway Garage is to your left. You'll note the loading facilities are along Ipswich Street, which is in the vicinity of the current garage access and egress facilities. And this is a model of the bleacher overlook area, which will take the last 3 rows roughly of bleachers and provide area where fans can get concessions, use restrooms, and mingle during the game. So it's accessible through the top of the bleachers as opposed to going down to the bottom and underneath for bleacher access to concessions and restrooms. Ashland took you through a number of the streetscape improvements, but we're making a number of improvements to the intersection of Ipswich and Lansdowne Street, as well as widening the sidewalk to 24 feet on Lansdowne Street, 20 feet on Ipswich Street, improving the furnishings, the lighting, and the street materials, and narrowing the pedestrian crossings at the intersection of Ipswich and Lansdowne as part of the project. This is a rendering at night of the streetscape improvements and current signage depictions. And then as Ashland went over some of the facts about the project, we are compliant with the zoning, both dimensionally and use. I think she referred to the dimensions of the project from a capacity standpoint. And just the other issue is on the allowable FAR for the site is 5, and we're currently, the theater is a 2.68 on the FAR allowable. That's kind of the overview.
That concludes your presentation.
That concludes the presentation.
Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. What is the market for this size concert venue, and how will the presence of this venue affect the existing venues in the city?
Thank you for the question. Dave Freeman from the Red Sox. So in order to look at this site, we did a market analysis with Live Nation. Live Nation and the Red Sox have partnered for many years at the Fenway Park concerts that we hold during the summer at Fenway Park. And there's no venue of this size really in New England other than the Rockland Trust Pavilion, which of course operates on a part year-round basis, not a full year-round basis. So with about 5,400 patrons, this would be a pretty unique venue. The venue will be operated with a live partnership, joint venture between Live Nation and one of the Fenway Sports Group entities, so that it's not competing with the House of Blues across the street, but rather working in conjunction with House of Blues. And so we believe it fills an important market niche that enhances culture in the city, and we'll be studying that question further with the Office of Arts and Culture as well.
Can you give some examples of types of shows that might appear here?
We can't give you and don't want to give you any particular act. The type of acts that could fill a 5,000 person venue would be pretty diverse in nature. We should add that this is mostly for performing art and music, but it can also accommodate civic events like graduation ceremonies, nonprofit events, other types of entertainment, not entirely music, but primarily music.
Thank you.
If you have suggestions or requests, you can let us know.
Taking reservations.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is there going to be any smaller space, or is it just this one large concert space? Are you going to be able to divide it up into smaller spaces?
The space, well, the theater is a larger space, but there's a lot of functional flexibility in how it's configured. So you could use a floor of the theater, or you could use the entirety of the theater. So I would say, Chuck, the floor is about half the capacity of the. And then I failed to mention that there's also some function space within the theater building itself that would be on the 500 to 600 person side that could be available for community functions.
Thank you.
Yeah, that last comment answered one of my questions. The New Arts Academy will be across the street, I believe, once it's completed. Could you elaborate a little bit on the kinds of internship possibilities that might be open to students attending the academy?
Thank you, Mr. Landsmark. I think the BPDA has worked extensively, as have the Red Sox, with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, Mayor's Office of Economic Development, who both had a particular interest in that exact topic: internships, career pathways, jobs development, workforce development opportunities as it relates to Fenway Theater and the broader happenings in this area. I think the Office of Arts and Culture is pleased with the commitments that have been made thus far, and the Red Sox have made a commitment to continue to engage and further define what exactly those internships will look like. I think the BPDA sees it as a unique opportunity for a very good partnership between two like organizations, and we're confident there'll be a good benefit coming out of it.
And the relatively new Boston Conservatory building is just around the corner from there. They're now part of Berkeley. And I'm curious as to what kind of relationships have been discussed with them.
I think similarly, the Red Sox and Live Nation have had conversations with both Berkeley and the New England Conservatory about synergy, not just from a internship standpoint, but use of the space and other collaborations. And I think in terms of business practices from behind the scenes technical business aspects of the performing arts to the upfront on stage, that there's a lot of synergy that have been defined for opportunities to work with both New England Conservatory and Berkeley.
And it seems that this will also change some of the use patterns of the 55 bus, which I guess now runs from Copley up through the Fenway to this location. So that may become really an easy way to get to this site other than coming up through Kenmore Square. Could you talk about the transit improvements that you're making to assist with that bus stop?
Yes, so as part of the public realm improvements, currently there's a bus stop, an older bus stop that's on the theater side of Ipswich Street. It's going to be relocated and we're going to provide a new bus stop at that bus shelter at that location. On the opposite side of the street, adjacent, just down from the Boston Arts Academy, we'll install a new bus shelter and facilities in that location. We've also made a commitment. The 55, we hope, will be a great asset to the theater as well as the Boston Arts Academy when it reopens. Right now, the ridership is pretty low on that route, so it's not high on the MBTA's list of improvements, but we've committed to looking at opportunities to increase utilization, and if we can find some feasible improvements to apply for a transit pilot program to supplement service on the 55.
Okay. And you went through the trouble of bringing the model. Is there anything you want to say about it?
We're just really proud of the model. We knew you were an architect, and we wanted to make sure we had the model.
Thank you very much.
So I have a couple of questions regarding the size of this venue. This is going to be a lot of pedestrian foot traffic coming in and out of there. I'm assuming it's going to be college-age people that are going to be attracted to these But have you talked about security with the Boston Police as far as this group getting in and out of the area, and how's that going to be addressed? I mean, it's a big space, and it's going to attract an awful lot of people, and it's going to change, I think, some of the way people come in and out of this area, and the way they exit mostly at night.
Yeah.
And also, with regards to that, is there a curfew? Is there a set time that this is going to be closed? You going to keep it open all night till 2 o'clock? Do you have a 2 o'clock liquor license? And how's that going to impact the area, the security in the area?
Well, taking the second question or third question first, it's a performing arts center largely, so it's not seen as a nightclub. We haven't gotten into the details of hours of operation, but generally speaking, we would expect it to close a little bit earlier. Captain Sweeney and the Boston Police Department have been involved in the process since the beginning. They've been superb. And we've talked about some potential improvements that would need to be tweaked in terms of enforcement. House of Blues and the Red Sox already provide for details at all of their events. And we anticipate that there would be more police details if, on those occasions when there's concurrent events, that we would need additional police. And we've talked about working together with them on not just managing the pedestrian flows, which would be the most significant, but also the shared ride, drop-off pickup activities, so we can define a plan that works for the theater, but more importantly for the neighborhood.
Okay.
I have another question. Adding this live element to the Red Sox brand gives the Red Sox the opportunity to really become more inclusive and diverse as a brand. And can you talk about that? Are you thinking about that strategically, using this venue in that way?
But I'll defer to the...
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question, and over the years, our ownership and leadership has been committed on that issue, and so the answer is yes, with respect to the workforce, with respect to acts that perform there. That will be the absolute goal of the venue. And it presents opportunities because there's so many diverse types of acts you can bring in terms of size and market. We've tried over the years with Fenway Park summer concerts, and that will be certainly a focus here too.
Great, thank you.
I'm hopeful that the relationship with the Boston Arts Academy and other students in the city will help also further that goal.
Great, thank you.
And I had one last question following from the chairman's question, and that is, what's the nearest police department substation to all of this?
Probably Berkeley, isn't it? I don't know the answer to that. I'm looking to, is it Berkeley?
Probably. Downtown?
I think it's D4.
D4? Okay. You might want to consider using just a piece of this as a place where they might have a presence in the area. Just in an overall sense. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in the neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you.
There might be some benefit to at least thinking about that.
So as Ruth already mentioned, we have an active and ongoing communication constantly with Captain Sweeney. The Red Sox organization pays for police details out of our own budget for games and other major events, and we staff those as much as we can. And so, as Ruth alluded to, for events that are concurrent with the new venue and for just the general needs for this venue, we'll be working very closely with Captain Sweeney and his staff.
Okay, are there any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, thank you. Congratulations.
How long before that's up and running?
And I think you get the best, best presentation as far as the models, so, from the past year. You get the award for the best
Actually,
model
I
presentation.
did have a quick question. When is the anticipated? How long is that going to take to kind of come to fruition? What yeah.
So our hope is to begin construction this fall. Might be an earlier start than we would like. And then two years.
2 years.
The goal is to open concurrent with the BPDA.
Very cool.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 19.
I want to go.
Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6, Small Project Review of the Zoning Code, for the construction of 38 residential rental units, including 6 IDP units, building lobby space, 39 garage parking spaces, a bicycle storage room, and loading dock located at 43 Lockdale Road, subject to continuing BRA design review and to take all related actions Ashland.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The BPDA received a small project review application on March 22nd, 2019 from Owen Kiernan for the proposed project at 43 Lockdale Road in Roslindale. Mr. Kiernan's proposal, calls for the construction of a 4-story, 38-unit residential rental building totaling approximately 28,775 square feet of gross floor area on the presently vacant project site. Garage parking for 39 vehicles and a bicycle storage room are among the ground level uses, as well as 2 studio units which will activate the streetscape of Lockdale Road. The BPDA hosted a constructive public meeting with the Roslindale community on May 28, 2019 to discuss the proposed project, which resulted in an increase of affordability on the project to 6 IDP units, or almost 16% of the building's total units. Approximately $60,000 of public realm and infrastructure improvements to the area of Lockdale Road and Washington Street are proposed as community benefits and mitigation in connection with the proposed project. The proponent has committed to undertaking the construction of new sidewalks along Lockdale Road from the project site to Washington Street, the installation of 2 new crosswalks on the intersecting corners of Lockdale Road and Washington Street, and the construction of 5 new pedestrian ramps and 1 curb extension at Lockdale Road, Washington Street, and Claxton Street. These improvements will create valuable connections to bus service while providing for increased accessibility and pedestrian safety along this stretch of Washington Street. David Freed, project architect, will present the proposed project to the board. We're happy to take any questions you may have after the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm pleased to present our proposal for a 38-unit, 4-story building at 43 Lockdale Road. Our parcel is located just north of Washington Street between Lockdale Road and Kitson Road, both of which are private ways and presently in kind of an unimproved state. We're sandwiched between a row of 3-family buildings. To the left is Roslindale Storage, and then a light industrial fabrication operation on the other side of Kitson. Our parcel is just half a mile from the Forest Hills T Station, and which is about a 10-minute walk. There's also a connection to the Arboretum at the end of Kitson Road. This is a view looking down Lockdale Road. You can see on the left is a 3-family. Further down the street is the storage facility. And to the right, there's a couple small commercial businesses right there. This is a view looking down Kitson Road on the left. Our site is where all the trucks are. You can see it's unimproved. There are no sidewalks and just asphalt. Our proposal is to have a building that fronts both Lockdale Road and Kitson. We'll have a green space that buffers between the 3-family residential buildings and our project. We're going to improve Kitson Road and create sidewalks on both Lockdale Road and Kitson that are complete street compliant and provide street trees. This is a first floor plan. On the left, we have an entrance here that is very close to Washington Street. We have 2 units, 2 studio units here which have direct entrances off Lockdale. We have a secondary entrance off of Kitson, which again, if you go down Kitson to Arboretum Way, it connects under the commuter rail back to the Arboretum. So we have several entrances that activate the sidewalk on the frontage of both Kitson Road and Lockdale Road. In addition, we have 3 garage entrances and a loading bay, and then we have 2 bike storage areas. One is directly accessed by an elevator through the building, and one is through the off the green space. This is a view of our front elevation on Lockdale. There's a few bays, a larger bay on the corner here. We have direct entrances to those 2 individual units, and then our main lobby there. This is an elevation as seen from the green space between the 3 families and our building. The facade is modulated by a rhythm of projecting bays and recessed decks. The materials of the building are lap siding in different textures and spacing, and then we have both horizontal and vertical siding. That is the that's our rear elevation. That's the Kitson Road elevation, in which we've got our garage bays, our loading dock, our secondary entrance. And finally, the image on the left is the present condition, and the image on the right is a render of the proposed development. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a nice day.
Item number 20 in Brighton, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6, Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the construction of 49 residential condominium units, including 6 IDP units, 52 off-street parking spaces, a bicycle storage located at 50 Leo Birmingham Parkway, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Ashling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On March 21st, 2019, City Realty Group LLC filed a small project review application with the BPDA for the proposed development of 50 Leo Birmingham Parkway in Brighton. The proposed project contemplates the construction of a 6-story, approximately 48,645 square foot residential building with 49 condominium units, 6 of which would be IDP units, 52 parking spaces, and on-site storage for at least 54 bicycles. The BPDA hosted a public meeting to discuss the proposed project on April 10th at the Brighton Elks Lodge, and the public comment period in connection with the proponent's small project review application submission concluded on May 31st, 2019. In connection with the proposed project, the proponent has made several community benefits and mitigation commitments, including a $30,000 contribution to the Boston Parks and Recreation Commission's Fund for Parks for improvements and maintenance to the Portsmouth Street Playground and Murray Field, which the project site abuts, a $25,000 contribution for implementation of transportation improvements resulting from the Alston-Brighton Mobility Study, which is presently being conducted by the BPDA, and a $10,000 contribution to the Friends of Boston Latin School crew for improvements to the boathouse on Soldiers Field Road, presently utilized by the BLS crew team. Jeff Drago, Project Counsel, will take the board through the proposed project, and the project team and I are happy to answer any questions you may have after that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polimas. Again, Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano, the project attorneys for 50 Leo Birmingham and representing City Realty. I also have Dan Artigis from Embark that will go over the floor plans quickly and elevations in a moment. This particular parcel combined, or 2 parcels, equals 16,427 square feet. It falls right along 50 Leo Birmingham Highway, which is primarily a commercial corridor with some residential in the back. It abuts Murray Field and Playground. My client had purchased the property with an idea to do something more conducive with residential housing in this area. And the proposal calls for to erect a 6-story building with 49 residential condominium units and 50 parking spaces on site. And as I had said, this is right abutting the park in the back, which will have access to that field, as well as walking distance to the Boston Landing MBTA site as well. It is, as was mentioned, a community commercial sub-district. Our lot size, 16,380 square feet. Our gross square footage, 48,645 square feet. This just shows you an aerial view. The red highlighted area is the 2 parcels combined, and you can see it abuts the park, primarily commercial, but as you go deeper in, you can see that there are commercial and residential in the back. This is the existing structure, so a 2-story structure. It's primarily uninhabited. There is 1 commercial tenant that's relocating, and so we'll be raising this building, this outdated building. Just a point to note, we do have a mix, 12 studios, 21 1-beds, 13 2-beds, and 3 3-bedroom units for a total of 49 units. We had a lengthy community process getting the BAIA support as well as many of our abutting neighbors. I'm just going to quickly turn it over to Dan RT just to go over the elevator.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
The entrance to the building will be off of Leo Birmingham Parkway, and a number of building amenity spaces will be located along Leo Birmingham Parkway to activate the street face of the building. We've also pulled the building back with a 6-foot setback to provide adequate width for the sidewalk to comply with complete streets. Off of Leo Birmingham Parkway, we're going to maintain the existing curb cut and use that as access to our parking, which we will be utilizing as series of semi-automated parking spaces as well as 2 handicap surface spaces. In working with parks as well as the community, we've maintained a minimum of a 20-foot setback from Murray Field and provide a landscape buffer on 2 sides of the parcel, as well as providing a public access point to Murray Field to the rear of the property, continuing to work with parks in that aspect. And then also providing 3 new street trees along Leo Birmingham Parkway. In terms of the elevation of the building, what we tried to do is kind of maintain some of the rhythm of the street, so pulling off of the height of the Samia building a little bit farther down Leo Birmingham, mimicking the building in color and scale, as well as utilizing cedar infill decks to bring warmth to the facade of the building. In terms of the rear facade, we're maintaining some of the similar characteristics of the front facade, knowing that this building will be viewed from the public by both sides, so bringing some of that masonry colored element as well as the inset decks, and then the landscape buffer from the rear elevation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, that concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 21. Requests authorization to issue a certificate of completion for parcel SWC-6D located at 1318 River Street in Hyde Park. Christopher?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. BPDA staff is requesting a certificate of completion for parcel SWC-6D consisting of approximately 1,484 square feet of a remnant parcel located at 1318 River Street in Hyde Park. The BPDA acquired the parcel along with others in the Southwest Corridor from the State Department of Public Works in December of 1986. In 1992, the BPDA received a bid for the parcel and eventually conveyed to the developer, George D'Amato, to construct a 1-bay addition and landscaping to his existing business, Junior's Automotive. BPDA staff visited the site on August 12, 2019, and found the property to be constructed according to the original land disposition agreement. Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 22 in Charlestown. Request authorization to adopt a minor modification to the Charlestown Urban Renewal Plan for parcel R-36 located at 74, 76, and 78 Tremont Street, and to allow the construction of 3 single-family townhouses, and to terminate the original land disposition agreement, and to enter into a new land disposition agreement with 74 Tremont LLC. Christopher.
Thank you, Chairman, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. BPDA staff is again requesting the approval for a minor modification of the Charlestown Urban Renewal Plan and to enter into a new LDA for parcel R36 located at 74, 76, and 78 Tremont Street at the corner of Lowney Way and Charlestown, consisting of about 3,900 square feet of land. Parcel R36 was purchased by the Golden family for use as a single-family home in 1989. They are now selling their home to Tremont LLC to construct 3 new single-family townhouses, each with parking. The project will result in the elimination of a curb cut on Tremont Street, freeing up space for resident parking, and the installation of a new curb cut on Lowney Way, where there currently is no parking, for access to the garage for the condominium units. In order to facilitate this redevelopment of the parcel, a minor mod is required to increase the height for the parcel from 25 feet to 35 feet, and to adjust the FAR from 1.0 to 1.75. And a new land disposition agreement will be thus entered into. There were 2 community meetings hosted for this redevelopment, one for the Zoning Board of Appeals process and another for the required minor mod and new land disposition agreement. The meetings were lightly attended. The applicants did make some minor adjustments, moving 74 slightly further from the direct abutter, and the proposal was supported by all local elected officials. Thank you. I'm here for any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Christopher. Item number 23. Request authorization to adopt a minor modification to the Charlestown Urban Renewal Plan for parcel C-2A-5, located at 516 R522 and 0 Main Street, to allow for residential and public use, to advertise and issue a request for proposals for the mixed-use economic development of parcel C-2A-5, located at 516 R522 and 0 Main Street. Christopher.
Thank you, Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Parcel C-2A-5 is approximately 6,126 square feet of land. It's located at 516, 522, 0 Main Street in Charlestown at the convergence of Main and Bunker Hill Streets, and has been the site of the Charlestown EMS substation for decades. To explore the possible redevelopment of this parcel, BPDA staff held a community meeting on March 12, 2019 at the Schraff City Center in Charlestown. The neighborhood spoke in favor of the BPDA issuing an RFP to encourage a mixed-use redevelopment project on the site that may also allow for a permanent home to the EMS station. A minor modification of the urban renewal plan in Charlestown is required to formally create the parcel and to include both public and residential land uses. The modification will also set a new floor area ratio limit at 4.7 and a height limit at 70 feet in order to accommodate any proposed redevelopment on parcel C-2A-5. Thus, BPDA staff is now requesting that C-2A-5 be made available by the BPDA for disposition in RFP to redevelop the property as a mixed-use development that may include a core and shell space to be available for such uses as a new Boston EMS substation as part of a larger development. We are also requesting that the board vote to approve a minor modification to the UR plan that would be necessary to create the land use requirements for a larger mixed-use development sought in this RFP. Thank you. I'm here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Christopher. Item number 24, at the South Cove, request authorization to adopt an order of taking for the vertical air rights at 212 Stewart Street project, and to petition the Public Improvement Commission for the vertical discontinuance of said air rights, and to take all related actions. Aisling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On June 15th, 2017, this board approved a proposal from Transom Real Estate for the construction of an approximately 146,000 square foot, 19-story residential building with ground floor retail and/or restaurant space at 212 to 222 Stewart Street in Boston's Bay Village neighborhood. The construction of the 212 Stewart Street project requires the vertical discontinuance of an approximately 5,085 square foot air rights portion of Stewart Street by the Boston Redevelopment Authority, and the acquiring of title for this taking parcel by Transom Real Estate. The action before the board this evening requests authorization for the director to co-petition the City of Boston Public Improvement Commission for the discontinuance of this portion of Stewart Street, and adopt an order of taking for the taking parcel before entering into and executing a deed and any other necessary agreements with Transom Real Estate. I'm also joined this evening by Paula Devereaux. On behalf of the development team, we're happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, I'm going to hold off on the next 3 items until 5:30 for the public hearings, and we're going to go right to personnel, number 28. Wow, you look like you just won something.
I just got excited. Okay. Okay, so thank you, everyone, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. We just have a few items for consideration on the BRA agenda. First, we have a status change for your consideration with further details listed in the board memo, and that's Alla Ziskin, Senior Geospatial Data Analyst or Data Analyst. We have 4 travel items for your consideration with further details listed in the board memo. 1 is Michelle Goldberg, Accounting and Finance Department. 2 is Tad Reed of the Planning Department. 3 is Trin Nguyen, Office of Workforce Development. And 4, Mary Kinesis, I'm so sorry, I'm going to kill her name, Kinesis, Planning Department. And finally, we have 1 departure for your consideration with additional details listed in the memo, and that's Paul Sebago, Office Services Coordinator.
Okay.
Thank you for your attention. If you have any
Thank you.
questions.
Are there any questions from the board? So we need a motion to accept the personnel request.
I move we accept the personnel request.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 29, contractual. Need a motion to pay all our outstanding bills.
I move we pay our outstanding
There
bills.
you go. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And the director isn't here, so we're not going to have a director's update, right?
Well, I have a couple of things if you're interested.
You do? Oh, you're going to
We
step?
have an acting director's update.
Oh, okay, there you go. We'll do that, and then we'll take in a brief recess until 5:30 when we can start the public hearing. So go right ahead.
I just have a couple of items. You have in front of you a recently released copy of Boston's economy report from 2019 that our research department prepared. It details the impressive economic growth that we've seen in this city, and it covers trends in employment, wages, housing prices, and real estate. You'll see in the report that Boston's economy grew by 2.9% from 2016 to 2017, and payroll and non-payroll jobs rose to 812,150 in 2017. That's the highest level of detailed employment data. That's the highest level since detailed employment data became available in 1969. The unemployment rate in April of 2019 was at 2.2%. And that level is below the state and national levels. Construction employment is at levels very close to the Big Dig era of the early 2000s, with over 3.6 million construction worker hours at Article 80 development projects in 2018. In 2018 in Boston, 3,733 new housing units were built as part of Mayor Walsh's plan to build 69,000 units of new housing by 2030. And short-term national and regional forecasts suggest strong economic growth should continue for the city. The continued job growth depends on the ability for the region's housing market to accommodate new population, which further underscores the need for continued housing. There's a special spotlight section in the report, and it takes a close look at Boston's higher education industry. It highlights the economic contributions of higher education in the city, and it looks at factors that influence enrollment at the institutions and discusses how colleges and universities in Boston may need to adapt to the changing education market. It's a very good report, so I recommend everyone take a look at it.
Can I ask you a question? Is this also online?
Yes, it is.
So
Yep,
if anyone,
it's on our,
the
yes, very, very good
wants to
point.
look
Yep,
at it,
yep,
they
it
can
is,
look
it is
at
online, correct.
Or we could look at it online also.
Yep.
Thank you.
We will be having an all-staff meeting on September 5th. It will be at Faneuil Hall at 2 o'clock. It will be followed by our late summer barbecue, which was rescheduled because of weather. Just to know, I can't remember whether or not the director discussed last month. Go ahead.
Pull your microphone.
Sorry. I don't know whether or not the director discussed last month, but Paul Sebago retired a couple of weeks ago. He was a 42-year employee with the agency, and we just want to wish him the best of luck in his retirement. And at this meeting, we approved over 1.1 million square feet in development, so it's a very big month for us.
Wow, great.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to adjourn. There's no more business to do now other than a public hearing, and we can't start them until 5:30 when we publicize that they would begin. So we're going to break until 5:30. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code regarding the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 125, Parcel 12 in the Back Bay, and to consider the Parcel 12 project as a development impact project. This hearing was duly advertised on August 1st, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Ashling will now begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I'm pleased to be before you this evening with BPDA staff's recommendation of approval and with the support of local District City Councilor Josh Zakum for the transformative Parcel 12 project, which sits on an approximately 1.81 acre site comprised of both land and air rights parcels above and adjacent to the Massachusetts Turnpike. Similar to the Parcel 12 project at 1000 Boylston Street, which this board approved in March of 2018, the Parcel 12 project is a product of the parcel-level planning framework established in a civic vision for Turnpike air rights, which was published by the BRA in 2000. A citizens advisory committee consisting of residents, business owners, representatives of community organizations, and professionals has assisted the BPDA in its review of air rights projects in this area since June 2011, serving as an impact advisory group for air rights proposals. The Citizens Advisory Committee submitted a letter of support for this proposal to the BPDA earlier on this afternoon. The Parcel 12 project will fill a long-present gap in the fabric of the Fenway and Back Bay neighborhoods and serves as an excellent example of public agencies and the BPDA and the property owner, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, leveraging private investment to create an exceptional public realm and improve pedestrian experience for the people of Boston. As identified in the 2000 Civic Vision Plan, several problematic existing conditions are proposed to be resolved through the Parcel 12 project, namely improved MBTA access, the relocation of the on-ramp, and widened sidewalks. The proposed project, which you will hear more on from the development team shortly, consists of up to approximately 657,000 square feet of gross floor area in two components. A primarily office component located at the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Boylston Street, and a primarily hotel component located at the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Newbury Street. The office and hotel components will be joined at the ground level by a retail restaurant component, which wraps around more than half an acre of new public plaza and elevated landscape space. Beginning with the submission of a letter of intent from the Samuels & Associates team in May of 2018, the robust Parcel 12 Article 80 review process included 2 filings with the BPDA, a number of CAC and public meetings, extensive coordination with other city departments and state agencies, and significant discussion among the development team in the neighborhoods of Fenway and Back Bay. Substantial public realm and infrastructure investments, as well as the proponent's commitment to all electric heating and cooling systems in the hotel building, which is expected to be one of the first installations of such systems in a high-rise mixed-use building in the city of Boston, have resulted in what will truly be a revolutionary project for the Fenway and Back Bay neighborhoods, as well as the city of Boston as a whole. The proponent has also committed to an approximately $270,000 package of community benefits to support a number of public realm and open space efforts in the Fenway and Back Bay communities. Through substantial coordination with the Boston Transportation Department, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, and Massachusetts Department of Transportation, the proponent will be reconfiguring one of the most challenging intersections in the city at Massachusetts Avenue and Boylston Street to provide a safe, comfortable, and accessible streetscape for pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicular traffic, and public transportation. As the proposed project constitutes a development impact project under Article 80, Section 80B7 of the City of Boston Zoning Code, a neighborhood housing trust contribution of approximately $4,645,480, and a neighborhood jobs trust contribution of approximately $930,190 will also result from the project. Before introducing the development team, I'd like to thank the members of the Citizens Advisory Committee, a few of whom are here this evening, for their time, service, and guidance through this process. Their commitment to the neighborhoods of Fenway and the Back Bay and dedication to the City of Boston have played a pivotal role in this process and the resulting proposal before the board this evening. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues in the BPDA Planning Department, Ted Schwartzberg and Lauren Shurtleff, and within the Boston Transportation Department, who all played a significant role in shaping the public realm and infrastructure improvements that will make this corner of the city such a special place, for generations to come. BPDA staff will be happy to answer any questions the board may have at the conclusion of the proponent's presentation. I'd now like to introduce Abe Menson of Samuels & Associates.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aisling. Thank you, members of the board. This is a really important project, as you all can see from the model, from the context slide. This project sits along three of the most important pedestrian streets in the city. It's incredibly important from a transit perspective. The site is located at the west side of Mass Ave between Boylston Street and Newbury Street. And we have spent really the better part of 7 years working in a partnership with a lot of folks to get input, plan the project, replan the project. We've gone through multiple iterations and design changes and reconfigurations of the project. The CAC has been incredibly important. They've dedicated evenings for a long time providing input. Members of the community have had great suggestions that have been incorporated into the project. Boston Transportation Department, BPDA planners and transportation staff, and of course the state transportation agencies have all really shaped the project that you'll see here tonight. So we're incredibly excited to be at this point and very pleased with the direction that the project has taken. Fundamentally, a couple of goals I just want to hit on that before we get into the presentation. Number one, we really wanted to take the opportunity to connect neighborhoods together by filling in this hole that was created in the 60s by the construction of the Mass Turnpike. We have really view it as connecting Cambridge, Back Bay, the South End, connecting Back Bay and Fenway by filling in this hole. There's approximately 700 feet of streetscapes that are going to be restored that are currently barren highway edges by constructing this project. Number two, we wanted to reorient the infrastructure. The infrastructure out there, as you'll see, is really geared towards cars. It was built in the 60s. Pedestrians, bikes, bus customers, transit customers in general, all need to be part of the solution, and our infrastructure has changed over time to include moving a highway ramp away from the end of the Newbury Street and Mass Ave intersection, creating a green line portal on the west side of Mass Ave, creating 40-foot sidewalks that can accommodate wide pedestrian zones, cycle tracks, and bus accommodations. Huge investment, tens of millions of dollars of investment in public infrastructure. Number three, we wanted to create great public realm experience with that infrastructure. We've got added a park to the project that's over a half an acre that will be a destination along Newbury Street and Boylston Street along Mass Ave. And number four, we really wanted to raise the bar on sustainability. We're one of the first really significant projects to come through approvals since the city's climate plans have been published, and the community really brought to our attention some opportunities, and we're going to be building the first, what I expect will be the first high-rise building in the Newbury Street building that will be powered by electric heat for HVAC using a technology called VRF, air source heat pumps, much more efficient technology, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So that's something we're also very excited about. So with that, I'll turn it over to David to walk through the project.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Burke, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, good afternoon. I think Abe has really described the importance of this site Clearly, we have the opportunity with parcel 12 and parcel 15 and parcel 13 to recover the disruption that came in the 60s to create much better public realm in terms of sidewalks, in terms of accommodating bikes, but really making connections between neighborhoods and filling in what really has been a scar in the city for a very long time, and making a connection between Newbury Street and Boylston Street along Mass Ave that just doesn't exist today. This is a great photograph. You can see exactly there it is. You can see exactly the outline of our site. Much of the site, of course, is air rights. There's terra firma to the south along Boylston Street. There's terra firma to the north along Newbury Street. But you can see that, as Abe pointed out, we have over 600, close to 700 feet of frontage that we can activate with uses that will engage pedestrians, create wider sidewalks, and accommodate all kinds of mobility. I want to point out, if you look at where that head house is, and you can see where the ramp goes today, I want to point that out because as I go to the plan, remember that. I want to come back and is really one of the major improvements we can make here. I think everybody knows the site. If you look at these photographs, it just reinforces the notion that this has been a series of empty holes in the public realm for many years. And what you really see in these photographs is a lot of blacktop, a lot of street, and really not a lot of really good public realm. And so the project, as proposed, really makes that bridge from Boylston Street to Newbury Street and improves the public realm really on all four sides, but from a pedestrian point of view on these three sides. The reason I was pointing out the vent shaft building, because as Abe pointed out, we are moving the ramp that will access I-90 West. That vent shaft doesn't move. It becomes kind of encapsulated in the building. It still gets its fresh air in the same way, but that ramp, instead of going to the south, now goes to the north. And so what was an intersection that had a curb-to-curb dimension of 70 feet is now a curb-to-curb dimension of about 30 feet. This has been an intersection that's been a dangerous one for many years, and the opportunity here is really to improve the walkability of Newbury from the east to the west, and certainly Mass Ave from the north to the south. Today there's 10 feet of sidewalk on the west side of Mass Ave. That will be almost 40 feet. Today there's 10 feet of sidewalk on Boylston Street. That will be 21 feet, aligning with the adjacent buildings. You're looking at a kind of roof plan, looking down on the office building and looking down on the hotel building. And you can see that the geometry of these buildings comes very much out of what's happening below grade as well as what's happening on the street. We really have kind of two sets of horizontal datum. You have the grid of the city, and then you have the disruption of the pike and the rail. And the buildings, in order to find ground, in order to bring structure to ground, really accommodate both of those grids by reinforcing the street wall, but also acknowledging where the Mass Pike is, where that seam is between CSX tracks and Mass Pike, and where, in fact, we can land the footprint of the hotel building. I want to point out here, and you're going to see a couple more renderings, this project changed significantly in the course of our engagement with the neighborhood, with the CAC, with BPDA and BCDC. Originally, we thought of the base of this building as being a bridge 2 stories high with 2 levels of retail and green space on top, which was an amenity for hotel and amenity for office space. All of those folks made similar comments that that's great, but wouldn't it be nicer if that green space was publicly accessible? Wouldn't it be nice if there was an opportunity to allow people to get here? And in fact, people described to us how important crossing this bridge is as a pedestrian, and those long views, yes, they are of a highway, but they're also to Fenway Studios, Fenway Park, and to the sunset, and a very long view. And what we did is we redesigned the project. We brought publicly accessible open space, 16,000 square feet of private space to the ground, and another 12,000 square feet on a second level, publicly accessible by a grand stair. We've added landscape to that, and the intent is that we are making more than a half acre of new space in the city that will provide a perspective that exists today and hopefully much better in the future. And so if I go down to the ground, you can see what we've done. We've carved out of the center of the site, and we've made green space. This will be surrounded by retail. It'll get subdivided. It'll have multiple tenants. There'll be a front door for office building, front door for hotel, access to parking below grade. And then on the south side office building, a relatively small floor plate, relatively thin floor plate, and an even thinner hotel floor plate to the north, and separation between those buildings. And so just a couple of renderings around the site. And we have to think about both the pedestrian experience from the east and from the streetscape, and then the automobile experience from the west. So I'm looking down Newbury Street. A view, this is obviously Newbury takes a kind of crank to the right here. It follows the river, as does Commonwealth Avenue. But we're very interested in that dimension so that light and air comes to the ground and gives us not a termination to Newbury Street, but a kind of datum of how the buildings reinforce the configuration of the street. And then a view down Boylston Street. You can see 360 Newbury to the right, the hotel building, our green space, the office building, buildings that come down to the ground and meet the street, 2 levels of retail on the office building, 1 level on the hotel building, continuous retail along the street. And then the last view is a view from the Mass Pike, an incredibly important gateway into the city. And we're kind of creating a bridge that crosses from Boylston to Newbury Street with a park on top of it, a park that will have very significant landscape, that will visually come down on either side. 2 buildings that are obviously similar, but quite different. Different in their uses, different in their metrics, different in their height, but with a system of building envelope and architecture that clearly makes a relationship between these 2 buildings. And then lastly, looking down on that green space. So in the foreground is Boylston Street. You can see a new cycle track. You can see 40 feet of sidewalk, the green space, 28,000 square feet, and a view out to the sunset from that park space between the 2 buildings. With that, Abe, do you want to make a concluding statement?
I think we've covered it.
You got to stand up to the microphone if you're not going to make a statement.
We're ready for Q&A. I think we've covered it.
You're ready to go. So that concludes the presentation. Okay. So this is a public hearing, so we're going to hold off on any questions from the board until after we take some testimony from the public. So I'll begin with anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal. Please step up, and remember, it's 2 minutes each, and we'll time that over there. Anyone that would like to speak in favor, please step up, state your name, and tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board, Minor Perez representing the Carpenters Union. On behalf of hundreds of our Boston residents, want to go on record in support of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Martin Rutter. I'm chair of the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay. I'd like to begin by saying, in fact, confirming what's already been said, that we really appreciate the way in which over the many meetings we've had, some public, some not so public, with Samuels, they have been remarkably sensitive to and responded to various comments and suggestions we've made, in particular, and we and others have made in the CAC, in particular, for example, with regard to the public space, with regard to reconfiguring some of the arrangements made for the various forms of transportation. Having said that, I would like to finish with a hope and an expectation, and that is, in a way, precisely because the relationship between the CAC, Samuels, the BPDA, community organizations, and residents has been, I think, so constructive and creative and productive, we hope and expect that the CAC will continue to play a significant role as this project moves forward. Because clearly there are many details that still remain to be worked out. There's still considerable uncertainty about issues of transportation, given, for example, that all the, I think, traditional rules of thumb or even tables that one may have from various engineering organizations about how various building uses generate certain kinds of trips. That's all changing under the impact of, transportation network companies, new modes of transport, and so forth. So that's the one thought I'd like to leave with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Hello, my name is Parker James. I work with NAB on the Development and Transportation Committee, but I'm also one of the co-founders of a new group, the Charles Gate Alliance. And but I really want to speak to you as an individual citizen because I'm a 38-year resident of the neighborhood. And it's the immediate neighborhood, so Mass Avenue and Marlborough Street. And for at least 35 years, I've been dreaming of how to fill this gap in the urban fabric. And I just want to say that I am thrilled to see that this is going to happen, and I am super thrilled that it's going to be the Samuels people that do this. I don't know if you know this, but Samuels and Associates had an office for years on the Mass Ave block of Newbury Street. And they really know the neighborhood, and they value it. And I've met with them, our group has met with them individually, and you can tell by their body language that they actually love the neighborhood. It's not everyone that loves it. So we're thrilled that it's these guys. And so they really understand value the neighborhood. They're supporting our plan for the transformation of the parks, which we would love to introduce you guys to. And they're going to support us through the community benefits as well, so full disclosure on that. So it's my dream, it's their dream. We hope to make the dreams reality. 30 seconds. I just want to also talk about this, talk to the CIC and the Article 80 process. It's been absolutely fantastic. I've been amazed at everybody's open-mindedness throughout, and to watch the project evolve over time. It's been really, satisfying. So this will be a truly transformative project. It will turn our neighborhood from a sort of awful place into a marvelous place. So I look forward to seeing this become a reality. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Meg Meinzer-Cohen, president of the Back Bay Association, and it was my honor to co-chair the Impact Advisory Group / CAC with Fritz Castleman, representing the neighborhood, NAB, one or the other. I will say that the Samuels team was profound in the way they worked with the neighborhoods of Fenway and Back Bay. They worked with us around seizing every opportunity, what some would call a complaint, and turned it into a benefit for our neighborhood. It was, really a visionary way for them to work with the neighborhood. And you can see that there was a letter that was submitted. I'm not going to go through all the points, but it was a unanimous agreement that this project should move forward. And there is a PS that we want to continue to work on some of the takeaway items which are listed. We also want to work with the BPDA on process-oriented things, and we are very happy with our new project manager, Ashling, but we have been around since 2009 as a body because we've reviewed a number of these. So there has been a lot of transition, and that she's done a very good job of sort of dealing with all of our personalities. So there's a lot of progress being made there. Back Bay Association all submitted a letter, and in the 30 seconds I have left, we support it. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please step up and state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Karen Money Brodick from the I'm the president of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy. We're a nonprofit that supports the Emerald Necklace Park. I'm very excited that the Samuels team has worked so closely with the community and particularly the Charles Gate neighborhood, which has really come together around a plan to improve what is perhaps the saddest part of the Emerald Necklace. In fact, a lot of people don't even know it's a park because it's under a freeway and quite maligned at this point. So I'm very excited about those improvements. And I also want to say that I think this is a really interesting opportunity to think about the way to make this space over the freeway green, because I'm hopeful that as we proceed in the next few years, we start thinking about a way that we can really reconnect the Charles Gate section over the Mass Pike to the Fenway as it originally was done, with a green bridge with trees on top of it. I mean, that's the way Frederick Law did it originally. So that would be, I think, a really lovely thing that this project might further inspire. Also, as a citizen who stands at that bus stop more than I like, it's the saddest, worst bus stop in the city. It's clear the respect for the public transit user based on the condition of it right now. So I think changing that one spot in the city would also be a tremendous gift to the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Sir, step right up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Benjamin Timon. I'm counsel for two direct abutters to the project, Dr. Sean Doherty and Mr. Paul Lewis, each of whom lives in separate condominiums at 360 Newbury Street. And they both were involved in the CAC process early on, and their concerns from the beginning have really been focused on traffic and pedestrian and bicycle safety. And they raised those issues repeatedly at the CAC, and frankly, they and I, in the period of time that I've been involved representing them, have felt like the answers on those safety issues have been really pretty light on analysis and heavy on platitudes. And we've heard some of that today in terms of that the infrastructure improvements will, vastly improve what we know are extremely dangerous intersections. In fact, 2 or 3 of the most dangerous intersections in the city. At the March CAC meeting, Samuels proposed the public park, something that they describe as a public gathering place, a public destination, and in fact the Walk Boston letter to the board described it as the public space that is likely to be most heavily used for pedestrians and described as a public gathering space by the developer. At the CAC meeting, we raised the question then, isn't this going to exacerbate these pedestrian safety concerns that we have, and what analysis will be done to determine how many more people are going to be using the site? We were dismayed to see, and I've put this in the letter that I hope that the board has had a chance to look at of August 12th, that in the DPIR, that the projected trip data showed that those projected trips for walkers and bikers actually went down from the EPNF numbers in November. So in November, before the public park was proposed, Samuels was the traffic consultant, said there'd be 8,300 walkers and bikers per day. Somehow, after this public destination and public gathering place was proposed, the number has gone down 9% to 7,602, which makes no sense. Tells us that there's no credibility to those critically important numbers that need to be understood to determine whether this is going to be a safe place for pedestrians and bikers. And so we would ask the board to please not move forward until those critically important questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, are there any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Go right ahead, please.
It seems to me that the Newbury Street retail corridor and the Boylston Street retail corridor have been impacted by the seaport. And I wonder if you can comment on how this retail area in your parcels is going to be impacting those 2 corridors, and how are those small businesses and businesses receiving this project?
So far, I think, as evidenced by the support from the Back Bay Association, we've had very positive feedback from the business community. We view the project as creating a critical link in linking the Newbury Street and Boylston Street corridors, so being able to complete that sort of pedestrian loop down Newbury Street, along Mass Ave, and down Boylston Street. We think that's really important from a pedestrian experience. It's also really important from a retail experience perspective. So the overall square footage is not huge. It's about 50,000 or so thousand square feet of retail. So I don't think we're thinking that there's going to be a sucking of tenants out of the Newbury Street corridor. On the contrary, we think it will complement the corridor and provide an anchor type of destination.
Are you going to be having any space for smaller businesses, or is it mostly larger retail spaces?
We very much would like to create some smaller spaces, some fine grain texture to the storefronts and the streetscape. I think the tenant mix, it's really too early to know exactly how that's all going to shake out, but we have studied the ground floor. It is demisable into very small chunks of space.
Thank you.
Mr. Moynihan, do you have any questions?
David, I don't know if this is, someone said about the Giles Gate, I think was the area. On the air rights, what's the premium roughly? I mean, I'm not looking to the penny. Is it under 10? Is it 10 to 20% on air rights?
I don't think there are really rules of thumb. We really look at it from the perspective of just until the infrastructure is all fully engineered, it's really hard to know, and it's very project specific. So our deck is very large, primarily because we pushed the building back so far from Mass Ave and Boylston Street. So I think each project is very different. But there are, tens and tens of millions of dollars of deck and infrastructure costs.
I mean, I've heard that from John Rosenthal for years, that premium on building the air rights. I'm just curious how much it was. And it kind of ties into if it was your choice and if it was negotiations, I understand how it works, but I would like to see more height. At least more height would have lessened the pain on the premium for the air rights.
Right. I think we felt we worked really hard on the massing, and in part in consideration of some of our discussions with folks in 360 Newbury, the buildings were deliberately...
On the Boylston Street side, I was saying more height on the Boylston Street side.
On the Boylston Street side, yeah. I think we felt like, given the context, the height that we arrived at seemed reasonable, and we think we have the formula to get the project out of the ground with that.
And caissons, what are you going to do there? You're going to drive piles?
It's a mix. It's actually, I could go on for hours on this stuff, but we've got a mix of...
I was just curious where you're going to do that from, and are you going to drive
drilled
them?
mini piles, drilled mini piles for the most part. The vibration with the train tracks they're very sensitive, so it's a mix of slurry wall, drilled mini piles, and steel H piles.
In concrete or structural steel going up?
Structural steel above the ground level.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I know this area fairly well, and I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on the handicapped accessibility that you are talking about creating to this T-stop, which is clearly one of the most important and active MBTA stops in the city that still doesn't have handicapped accessibility. So could you speak to that and the use of the tunnel that goes underneath Mass Ave, which I think most people don't know has been there for a long time?
So our project will be building a new accessible connection down to that tunnel. The tunnel itself we will refurbish, really providing an accessible path from the west side of Mass Ave down to the station. The T separately, and we will be coordinating with them closely on this, but the T has its own station improvements program. I can't speak to the timeline or implementation of all of that, but we'll be closely coordinating with them on that. The project itself, we've met with the Disabilities Commission and a number of, we've given a lot of thought to accessibility and pleasant accessibility along Mass Ave, Boylston Street, and up to the second floor, or the roof of the first floor where the elevated park is located.
And I concur with my colleague in terms of height. I mean, we're not part of the CAC, but if height helps to make the numbers work, I think there would be some openness to having that considered. And I also want to commend the architect because the earlier renderings that we saw of this seemed to create a building that terminated Newbury Street at Mass Ave, and this new iteration opens up, as you've I think aptly said, a view to the sunsets that one can see along Newbury Street and not well along any of the other parallel thoroughfares there. I think, having been in that neighborhood for a long time, I think that anyone who purchased a condo at 360 Newbury knew that some kind of development would be coming in those air rights, and that any additional development that did show up there would have some impacts. And I think that you've done a very exceptional job in terms of mitigating the negatives and turning the end of Newbury, it's not really the end of Newbury Street, but the end of that portion of Newbury Street into a real asset. What's your prospective start date?
So we're going really rapidly. We're designing the infrastructure as we've been going through the permitting, and we hope to be in a position to break ground in first quarter of 2020 next year. Thank you.
Are there any further questions, Mr. Moynihan?
How much in real estate taxes, additional real estate taxes are going to be
Don't have the exact numbers, but in the range of, it's over $5 million a year.
I have a question. So can you speak a little bit to the kind of improvements or the conditions of traffic, pedestrian, and bicycle safety, addressing some of the opposition concerns?
Oops. Uh-oh. All right. I'll have to go without visuals. I think, we've been working with BTD, MassDOT, MBTA. The idea that a park is a bad idea because it might create more pedestrian activity, I don't think we agree with that. So fundamentally, moving the highway ramp is an incredibly important safety benefit. In the months that 18 months prior to us filing, there were 2 fatalities at that intersection. That actually prompted us to completely reconfigure the project. We originally weren't moving the ramp. We took that work on. We believed that was really an important aspect of fixing that intersection. If we didn't take that on, we would have built a great project, but we wouldn't have solved all the problems out there. So fundamentally, moving that ramp, fixing that intersection solves a lot of safety problems. Moving the building back from Mass Ave and creating enough space to separate bikes from buses from pedestrians. We'll be working on exactly how we do that. We'll be updating the CAC on that and working with staff. But those are all measures that we've taken to improve public safety.
I don't have any other questions, but maybe just one comment of, just want to say thank you to the people who, all of the citizens of Boston and who served on the CAC and the different, going to these meetings. Just want to say thank you. I think this is going to be an incredible asset for the city, and I can't imagine what it would be like if it didn't have this. So thank you for fighting for that open space, and thank you for compromising as well to kind of see all the value that's going to bring not only to your development but also just to to the city. So thanks, and
ready?
yeah.
Okay, if there's no further questions or no further comments, a motion is in order?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
That's going to be incredible.
Nice model. Better than the other one. Better than the other one.
Hopefully. It should be. It should be.
No. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code, to consider the Sixth Amendment to the Development Plan for Planned Development Area Number 46. This hearing was duly advertised on August 2nd, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a Boston Planning and Development Agency hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the authority. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Mr. Sinatra will now present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Michael Sinatra, BPDA Project Manager. The project before you is the Sixth Amendment to PDA number 46, the Brighton Landing Project. The original project was approved by this body on February 25th, 1999. There have been previous amendments, with the fifth and most recent gaining approval on August 13, 2015. We are before you tonight seeking the approval of a warehousing use only. There are no dimensional or design changes to the project, just a simple addition and clarification of language within the PDA. The Sixth Amendment and Notice of Project Change were filed with the BPDA on June 7, 2019. A joint community and IAG meeting was held on July 9, 2019, and the comment period closed on July 23, 2019. We received no opposition to this amendment. At this time, I will turn it over to Keith Craig from the development team for a very brief presentation, after which we would be happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. Make this really quick. As Mike had described, I won't go into too much of what he said, but what you see here is original PDA number 46, which has been in existence since 1999 with the construction of 10, 20, and 15 guest streets. A picture of the garage in question here. Over time, we've had 5 amendments here where we've done a bunch of different things, most significantly where we've added a 6th floor to the garage, as well as a new stair tower and elevator core, as well as some lovely fins that were courtesy of Mr. Manfredi, from Elkis Manfredi, to make the garage fit in a little bit better with its neighbors at Boston Landing. So this is really just a cleanup item for us, with the zoning review of all of our properties. It's not a project. We're not adding any square footage. We're not adding any greater impacts. We're just simply trying to conform zoning to what's already been in existence in the property since 2001 with tenants Newbury Comics and New Balance. That's all I really have for you. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. We'll hold off to questions until after we have some public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this? Please step right up. Anyone that would like to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Minor Perez with the Carpenter Senior, would like to go on record support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Just a comment. I went to visit this site yesterday afternoon, and I think that what you've done with the changes so far has really been excellent. And adding the fins to the building, it seems like a small thing, but totally changes the building and makes it fit much better into the context of the neighborhood. So
And thank you. And just in terms of a construction update, we are a few months into the track at New Balance, which is, kind of that world-class track and field facility and other associated multi-sports, and we're 2 years from this month of completion.
Okay, if there's no further comments and no further questions, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, this is the final public hearing. Ashling, this is your project?
Tim's.
This is your 7th one tonight, 6th or 7th? Is anyone else working down the hall here?
Take the summer off.
Where are all the guys? I mean, God.
Then it'd be lost without us, wouldn't it?
Okay, this is a public hearing for the 1241 Boylston Street project in the Fenway as a development impact project. This was scheduled on July 11, 2018, at 2019. Yeah, it says 2018, at 5:50 p.m., after which I moved that the board voted to table the proposed action for consideration. At this time, I move to take from the table this proposed action for consideration and to hold a public hearing. So there's a motion in order for that.
I move we untable this and put it
Okay.
forward for action.
Second?
Second.
Second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. So we're going to move forward. I'll read this statement. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code, to consider the 1241 Boylston Street project in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston as a development impact project. This hearing was duly advertised on August 1st, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Ashling will now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good evening, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Filling in again, for my colleague Tim Serwinski, who spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort into this project over the last few months, and I'm sure he's disappointed not be here to get it across the finish line tonight, hopefully, but I know the development team appreciates his efforts and his professionalism through the Article 80 review process. 1241 Boylston LLC filed a project notification form with the Boston Planning and Development Agency on December 22nd, 2017, for the proposed redevelopment of the approximately 21,050 square foot site at 1241 Boylston Street in the Fenway neighborhood, which is presently occupied and utilized as a Shell gas station and 100-car parking lot. The proposed project is designed to be fully compliant with the underlying zoning of the project site and consists of the construction of an 8-story, approximately 105,000 square foot hotel containing approximately 184 guest rooms, approximately 46,000 square feet of ground floor retail space, and approximately 82 below-grade parking spaces. 1241 Boylston Street sits within a Greenbelt Protection Overlay District, and as such, the proposed project will require review and approval by the Boston Parks and Recreation Commission. The project site is also located within the Groundwater Conservation Overlay District and will require a conditional use permit pursuant to Article 32, which constitutes a development impact project usage. An approximately $45,150 contribution to the Neighborhood Housing Trust and approximately $8,900 contribution to the Neighborhood Jobs Trust shall result. In addition to significant public realm and infrastructure improvements on and around Boylston and Ipswich streets that will be undertaken as part of the project, the proponent has also committed to a $100,000 contribution to the Parks and Recreation Commission's Fund for Parks for projects and programming in the Back Bay Fens, $25,000 contribution to the Fenway Victory Gardens, $20,000 contribution to the Fenway Community Development Corporation to support the CDC's Walk to Work program. The proponent has also committed to participating in neighborhood job fairs both before opening of the hotel and on an ongoing basis. and the provision of 10 parking spaces in the project's below-grade garage made available for use by the Boston Arts Academy at a discounted rate for a period of 10 years. With that, I will introduce Don Weist, Project Counsel, to further the presentation.
Ashling, thank you very much. Thank you for filling in for Tim Zerwinski in a pinch here. I'm Don Weist, Permanent Counsel for the project. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Executive Secretary, members of the board. Before turning the podium over to Taylor Callahan of OTO, just a couple observations about the project from a policy standpoint. One big picture observation and a smaller one. The Fenway was rezoned, an extensive planning and rezoning process that took place between 2001 and 2004. A major goal of that rezoning process was to transform Boylston Street from a street that people just went down on their way to somewhere else into a real urban place. It's actually kind of hard to remember with all the wonderful changes that have happened along Boylston Street, but it was really auto-dominated. There were a lot of asphalt parking lots, a lot of drive-throughs along Boylston Street. And so a goal of the rezoning was to create a real urban village. It would be predominantly residential, but also have a mix of other uses so that throughout the day, different users would keep the street active and lively. One of the key components of that vision was a hotel. We're very pleased to bring an approximately 184-room hotel for the street before you tonight. This is a kind of a final piece in the puzzle of the revitalized Boylston Street. The project is completely zoning compliant. It's not only a use that was called for by the Fenway zoning, but also meets all the dimensional requirements, parking, etc. Boylston Street is today a high spine extending from east to west. We're at a hinge point where the scale of the neighborhood drops. The building will be 90 feet high, which is the zoning height. It'll be set back to create a nice public space, be extensive landscaping that will pick up on the fence, but it also gives some breathing space to the landmark new Boston Arts Academy facility behind us. As Ashling went through, although it's an as-of-right project, the mitigation commitments are significant. The proponent, OTO, believes in contributing to the communities where they open hotels, and they've been very generous with stakeholders in the neighborhood. And then finally, just a small picture point about the hotel. It'll have a restaurant on the ground floor. OTO's goal for the restaurant, besides the fact that it be operated by a first-class restaurateur, is that they serve all-day breakfast. OTO has learned from operating hotels in different markets that the ability to go get a cup of coffee, a couple eggs and toast is meaningful not only to hotel guests, but also often to seniors in the neighborhoods where they operate. And so the hotel is addressing some big picture goals of the planning. We hope also in a small picture way it can become a neighborhood gathering place between the restaurant, the community space within. With that said, I'll turn the presentation over to Taylor Callahan of OTO.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you also to Ashling for filling in for the new father, Tim, this evening. Couldn't be more excited to be before you this evening. With in addition to Ashling and Tim, the rest of the BPDA staff, BTD staff, that's helped us get us here tonight. Also the IAG for all the time and energy dedicated to the project, and not just the IAG, but the broader community and the people we've been able to meet along the way. That time and energy has led to what we think is a better project today. OTO Development is a family-owned development and operating company. We will operate the hotel as well. We've developed over 70 hotels in communities around the country, and we really couldn't be more proud to open our first hotel here in Boston. We take great pride in the work environment that we create and the careers that we have resulted from the company's growth and the investment we've made in our team members. Our philosophy is to hire for the long term and to promote from within, and we're very much looking forward to building those relationships here. Our team makes a point to be active citizens in the communities that we serve. We're excited to further that relationship with the Fenway CDC and the Walk to Work program and the hiring goals that we've targeted with them. We're also fortunate to be located near the Victory Gardens and the Emerald Necklace, and next to one of Boston's most inspirational educational institutions in BAA. We look forward to the relationship with both. In particular, we're delighted that our project can support BAA with parking in our garage. I'll turn over the presentation to Harry Wheeler of Group 1, but I'll just note we're very pleased, and Harry will explain, that we've been able to fit within the urban village goals established in Article 66, as Don just mentioned, and present to you a zoning compliant project. Thank you again, and our full team will be able to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Harry Wheeler with Group 1 Partners, project architects. A lot of the project details have already been talked about through the previous presentation, so I will go very quickly, but importantly, spend some time on the design of the project and the design goals that we're able to achieve working with the neighborhood, the IAG, and the BPDA staff. Very quickly, to orient everybody to the project, we are located here on the corner of Ipswich and Boylston Street at 1241 Boylston Street, the existing site of the Shell gas station. One of the things that was important to us in looking at the site was the revitalization of this intersection of Boylston Street and Ipswich Street. Although removing a gas station, which some people in this room may use, what we are doing is improving the area for the neighborhood and the public realm and the pedestrian environment. Currently, 4 24-foot ingress-egress curb cuts exist. We'll be eliminating all those, creating a much nicer pedestrian path, wider path, and also a landscape strip along Boylston Street. Also, where the BAA is located behind us, we will be taking the alleyway, which currently does not have a curb, and it's a free-for-all for the gas station. We're providing direct access there into our parking garage through there, and also siting the building in proximity to the BAA, pulling it as far away as we physically can, providing light and air into their new building, which is going to be a jewel for the BAA. A couple slides of the existing site now, and also how it utilizes over 90 parking spaces on a game day, which we will no longer have that traffic impact for the hotel. Looking at the landscape plan for the hotel, again, the restaurant located on the corner of Ipswich and Boylston Street, providing pedestrian seating, widened sidewalks, a landscape buffer across the way from where the garden is, and creating a small pocket park here where we intersect our residential building to our east. Creating a nice hinge point, as Don had mentioned, and a gateway from our commercial zone gateway into the residential area. One important piece to note is the location of the entrance for the hotel. We have pulled it far from the curb along Ipswich Street, also extending the curb line out here, providing a larger resting zone for pedestrians for crossing these sidewalks, reinforcing the bike lanes, which are existing now and being rebuilt as part of the revitalization of Ipswich Street. We will continue to make sure those work with our development, and also providing a pull-off zone along Ipswich Street for our cars to get off of the drive lane, and creating a resting zone here for where we can have temporary check-in and loading, where the cars will then move here into our parking, below-grade parking, where we mentioned we have 82 parking spaces. One of the points that I want to just spend a little bit of time on was the siting of this project and how important it was to the community that we maintain the existing street wall lines, both from the residential side, which we do, and also from the commercial zone along Boylston Street, which you can see here, maintaining this direct sight line for the pedestrian path. Below grade parking again, which is purely valet. And then looking here how our building does protrude out and provides a little 8-foot canopy above that pedestrian path, but again, below grade, on grade at the pedestrian realm, we are maintaining that street wall. Looking at the building elevations, again, as Don and Taylor had mentioned, we are zoning compliant in all the dimensional regulations of the project. We are 90 feet in height. We do have a setback along Boylston Street at 69 feet, where we create a 2-story top to the building that's much more glass and feeling, creating that pavilion, greenhouse feel look that overlooks the park. As well as looking at a building architecture that is a mix of masonry and glass with some metal accents that further has that feeling of kind of a garden terrace look and feel, with the windows, the very wide, full width, full height windows that overlook the park, and also creating a strong retail corner here for the restaurant. Here's the project rendering at night, looking across the intersection, the well-lit corner for the 3 meal a day full-service restaurant, the hotel rooms above, and the entryway, which is lit by a backlit canopy along Ipswich Street. A couple quick aerials and perspectives, which I'll flip through, showing how we are activating the sidewalk, creating the seating zone, also creating a wide planting width as well that comes down to our pocket park. Again, looking at how the seating can spill out from the restaurant. We are changing the architecture a little bit as we turn this corner, again at that hinge point that Don had mentioned. where the building architecture wants to kind of follow this more rhythmic pattern of the residential bay fronts next to us. So we are creating that down by providing a more modern, contemporary version of the window bay. And with that, I will take any questions. I did pass over the slide, which is our public benefits, but I think all those are laid out in front of you, and the project team is here to answer any questions you may have about that and/or the design of the project itself. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll get into the public hearing part of this, and is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project? Please step up. Anyone that would like to speak in favor, just step up, state your name, and you can line up if you want.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Manuel Perez representing the Carpenters Union. On behalf of hundreds of our residents from Boston, want to go on record support.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. My name is Ann Clark. I'm the headmaster of Boston Arts Academy, the proud Boston public school that is finally getting an amazing new building next to this building. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the BAA community in support of this project. We're very proud and pleased to report that throughout the process, the design team has respectfully listened to our concerns and worked with us as abutters. They've worked with us on our parking concerns, as has been mentioned, but also the use of the shared alleyway, the facade design, and also talking to us about our program and how they can support our program and our students. And we've really enjoyed working with the project team and hope to work with them in the future. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition, just step right up. Okay, hearing none, are there any questions from the board? Mr. Moynihan, you have any questions? Anyone else have any questions?
Sure.
Comments?
Go ahead, Ted.
Go right ahead.
You folks have the bad luck of being the last of several Fenway projects that we've considered not only tonight but in the very recent past. And I would raise this question with all of the projects that have been or could be approved, and that is to say, this project is 100 yards from what will be a 5,000-seat theater, and just a couple of hundred yards from the project we just approved on the corner of Mass Ave and Newbury Street in Boylston, and adjacent to the Arts Academy construction, and only about a quarter of a mile from the Rosenthal Air Rights construction. And all of these projects are going to be ongoing over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years in a neighborhood that could hardly be called deprived of traffic today. And so my first question covers what kind of shared planning you are doing to mitigate the traffic impacts that will take place during the next few years of the construction period.
Thank you, Mr. Landsmark. The construction upswing in the Fenway is just a reality. It's a difficult urban condition, and there's it is what it is. Doing our part to mitigate that, we have been in early contact with our neighboring development project, the Boston Arts Academy, starting well over a year ago. We were in touch with their own construction people. We share an alley. We'll work together on staging. We've had a very cordial relationship with them. We've talked quite a bit about how to make at least our corner of the neighborhood function as well as we can. As far as traffic itself, we are in the fortunate position of replacing a gas station, a service station, and a 100-car parking lot. So we're actually in the relatively unusual position of being able to reduce traffic at our own site significantly.
I know that gas station well. I use it usually once a week.
We apologize about that.
Yeah, this is also a neighborhood that's losing gas stations. There used
It
to
is.
be 4, and now with your project moving forward, there will be 1, as far as I can tell, and that's okay. But what I'm less concerned about is the impact that removing a gas station is going to have than the impact of traffic and staging during the construction period itself. And it may be that you haven't yet, I mean, you don't have an approval yet, but it may be that there is, I won't say there may be, there is a pressing need for you to coordinate construction staging, when your cranes are coming and going, when you're taking delivery on materials, where all of those pickup trucks from New Hampshire are going to be parking while their workers are working on the project. This is an intersection that is crucial to the flow of traffic through the city, and in particular to the medical institutions, which are not that far away. And if you haven't had those conversations with the CAC and our transportation department, I would strongly urge you to do that, because the way you are working there, even when the Red Sox are not in town, could become highly problematic for the area.
It's a fair point. Those conversations are ongoing. Yeah, please.
So I'll just absolutely, and as Don mentioned, the Lee Kennedy team, and then also the city's representative Jim McQueen for BAA. We've been working with. We've hired our contractor already, Tishman. We've already been having coordination meetings, and you're absolutely right, especially on some of those delivery items. Making sure we're coordinating. You know, we have our project schedule overlaid their project schedule, and so we're working through those. Obviously, ours has been, until we get approved, it's hard to set it in stone, but we've been preliminarily doing that. But I absolutely agree with you, and would welcome any coordination with BTD and the broader group. For us, it doesn't serve us if we're not coordinating, then it's going to create problems for us too. So absolutely.
And then the other comment is more personal in nature. I was very pleased to hear that your expectation is that your restaurant is going to be serving breakfast all day. If there's any neighborhood in the city that would be ripe for a restaurant that serves food all night, it would be this neighborhood. I mean, you've got the core of people there. You're going to have people spilling out of Lansdowne Street. You have people coming out of baseball games and concerts. And you have a cadre of thousands of people who've moved into that neighborhood. And you don't have to serve alcohol, but I would encourage you to think about what it might mean to finally have a restaurant somewhere in the city with a base of patrons where you might be able to get a hamburger at 3 in the morning. And if there's any neighborhood where such a restaurant would survive, it's right here. I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
I had one question about, you made some commitments in your hiring, and I wanted to know how those are going to be enforced, or how you're going to be held accountable for those commitments.
Sure. One of the things we worked, the Walk to Work program is, in conversation with CDC, we learn more about the program. And their goal is as many people that live in and around Fenway to be able to get to work more easily. For us, it's a great goal for us too, in that if your team members live close to where they work, then they're more likely to stay with you longer. It's a better work environment. It's a better quality of life for them getting to and from. So we share that goal. We also work, know that it's a very, very tight labor market. And so knowing that we can get everybody from the neighborhood is probably going to be a difficult goal. So we try to work with we felt like some reasonable targets. We noted that LMA, when they did a survey, and LMA has a lot more resources, a lot bigger organization, obviously. They have about 30% of their employees are coming from the Boston, city of Boston. And so we use that as a target ourselves to have 30% be Boston residents and 15% be within a tighter radius. We don't have the resources and the HR capabilities that they do to sort of specifically target, and that's why one of the reasons why we want to, as much as possible, work with CDC to help target potential people in the neighborhood that might be a good fit. So as far as they are targets, you know, we really hope we can exceed those, but that's where they sort of originated.
I'll add that we'll also participate in the local hiring fairs.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. And thank you, Aisling, for all your work tonight.